And I think too, when you know who your customer is, you're able to understand what decisions are really about them. And if you're trying to be all things to all people, that leads you into the scarcity mindset of I can't give things away and all that stuff, because now you're just by default left to thinking about yourself because you don't have an avatar or a particular customer that you're thinking of, which, by the way, doesn't have to be outrageously narrow. It can be slightly broad.
Welcome back to 10 Tenths, where we coach agents out of burnout into high-producing businesses that fuel their lives. I've got Matt Benelli with me today, and so we don't make you feel like you need to fast forward through anything. We're going to get right in the meat of it today. Jordan, we're specifically talking to you. We have an episode for you today all about putting the customer first, all about making sure that everything you do in your business turns to the point of, does this make a better experience for the customer? And Matt, we're watching some people out here in the business right now having to make some tough calls with making sure they're putting the customer first. You read something, watched something by Gary Vee that got you thinking about this. And then we recently read a book that showcased making some big decisions, taking on some hefty fines, but again, all about putting the customer first. And good morning, my friend. And let's get right into this, man.
Yeah, let's dive in. You guys know the intro. We'll do it again on the next episode, and you'll hear us on the outro. Garrett, the book, we read The Art of Gathering as our book of the month for June, and we're not, this is not going to be a book review, but at the end of the book, towards the end of the book, she's talking about protecting guests and stuff, and uses George Lucas as an example and the original Star Wars movie. Well, the first one, which was episode 4, which, for those of you who are Star Wars fans, you understand all that stuff. The opening credit scroll, I didn't realize this until I read this in this book. That opening credit scroll where it just goes from, 21st Century Fox, or I guess it was 20th Century Fox at the time, excuse me. And then into the scroll, cut out all the production companies, the director thing, and all that stuff. He was fined $250,000 for it, and he knew it, but he wanted the film to start in a way that just brought the audience right into the moment. And how cool is that? He was like, just thinking about the audience, thinking about the customer of this film. And it led you and I to talking about, like, well, how are we playing this out in our businesses? And are we truly putting customers first? Or are the customers, even if it's not a big thing, we think these things are small, are they kind of feeling the flack from decisions that we're making that put the customer second or third?
You think about it from George Lucas's perspective, where he's like, okay, operating budget to make this film. Okay, we're going to add $250,000 on there just because we're gonna piss some people off right up front. We're not going to acknowledge certain people that really want the acknowledgement, where we're going to take a hit on that one. But it's all about the customer. And I think it's an interesting thing because you take that movie, for example, and like anybody who was alive during that time when that movie was released, like, it was a thing. I mean, that movie hit, and the minute people were started talking about it, got the experience of it, it was different than any movie anybody had ever seen. It just pushed the levels on a lot of different areas. And to think about, a lot of the book, The Art of Gathering, talks about the very initial moment that people get to experience what you're going to be doing, the gathering that's happening. And that's what George Lucas leaned into, was this moment that changed the script a little bit. It created a different environment, a different experience that made people then engage in the movie in a different way.
Yeah.
And I think from the customer perspective, we have this opportunity in our business all the time, Matt, when we're doing our listing presentations. And you think about, like, okay, so what is the pre-listing interview or the pre-listing packet that we do? It's no different than cutting out all the BS and just saying, okay, we're going to create an experience up front that's different than you can get anywhere else with any other real estate agents. It's that little moment that we have to say, okay, let me back up for a second. There are people that look at the pre-listing packet as, this is about me. This is about my process and all my stuff and all my things. And just, I'm going to encourage everybody as we talk about this stage. You hear Matt and I banter about this. Like, what if you looked at the pre-listing packet that gets sent over, the pre-listing interview that you do, all these things that we do with clients early on, and say, what if the whole focus was about customer experience and them having a better experience rather than me trying to show up like I'm somebody.
But it's a really good point. And what I find fascinating is that I believe what George Lucas did changed film entirely. I remember my daughter was watching, we put on like an old movie, an old kids movie that was, I think, released in the early 70s. And she was like, what is going on? I'm like, what are you talking about? And like, I turn around and like, there's all these credits just going. She's like, when are they going to get to the movie? I was like, I totally understand that. Right. And it's like, well, who's benefiting from us producing this? Is it the people who've produced it? Are we doing this for ourselves, or are we doing it for the customer? And Garrett, you're spot on with the pre-listing packets, the buyer consultations, all this stuff. A lot of times we focus on is like, how can I use this moment to help showcase myself and learn as much as I can so I can go do this process for these people, which, by the way, I'm not saying that's necessarily a bad thing. We need to have information, but we're thinking about ourselves first. If we think about the client experience first, because this is where you see some agents get into, well, I don't want to give away my best stuff. I got to hold a few things back. I can't tell them this thing or that thing, right?
I just had that conversation with somebody going like, well, what if I put all my stuff in here and they use it against me? I'm like, or if somebody else then knows about it. And it's like, one, if it does happen, oh my gosh, don't change your entire process on that one moment of that happening. Second is that it's not going to happen. Very rarely are they're going to sit down and be like, well, Matt, we really like you, but we have this thing from another agent, and will you do all their stuff? It could happen, but nobody's doing that. They're picking someone they're going to hire and they're going to go with it. So,
well, imagine a plumber saying like, oh gosh, you can go YouTube how to do this. Like, that's just going to kill my business. Like, all my clients could just go YouTube exactly how to do what I'm going to do. I can't tell them how to do it because then my job's like, no. The doing of the thing is what people are hiring you for. They're not hiring you for, the process. Well, they're hiring you for the process, but they're not hiring you for like displaying it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
So you got me thinking about the movie, because before we started this, Matt and I were trying to figure out how we could actually play the opening scene of Star Wars and maybe start the episode off with it. And then I had to remind Matt that there are copyright infringements. And if some company is going to come after us, it might be that one for the moment that they're like, hey,
and
guys.
As big as we are, Garrett, I don't think that we have the bank account
Not
to
yet.
fight the Star Wars
Well,
franchise.
I'm not about to go fight George Lucas, but you think about like how that also changed film moving forward, because I started to think about that of like all the movies that I've seen in the past that you have all this stuff up front, and some movies still do. There's still movies out there. But there are ones, and you all know it when you're watching that movie and it jumps right into the movie, like instantly from this moment here, you are in the movie. And I think it goes back to what is the customer's experience in this thing. So then that got us talking about, when you have internal stuff going on. And I just had a client this morning that had this happen where they had an issue with the vendor that all of a sudden caused major turmoil for one of the clients. And she's having to make some really big decisions right now about, I need to protect my clients, my people. I have another client last night that I was talking to who's having to fire an internal employee right now. And it all comes down to enough little mistakes were made, but they're not like clerical, like, oh, we need to get signatures on this, we need to do that, is directly affecting the customer experience, where they're now confused. They're trying to figure out what's going on in an already stressful situation. And the thing that keeps coming back down to it is like, when something is affecting the experience that your customers are having with you, if it's a negative experience, oh my gosh, we need to fix it fast. I found myself last night on the phone going, hire slow, fire fast, especially if it's affecting your customer experience. Because at the end of the day, that is all your business has to stand on, is what is the customer's experience when they come here. Because if they're not enjoying it, they ain't coming back. If they're not enjoying it, they're definitely not telling their friends, you should go try this out. Think of a restaurant. Any restaurant you've gone to that you've liked for a while, we have one here in town. It's been an amazing restaurant. And all of a sudden, something's changed. Something's different. All of a sudden, you know, even my son, I brought him home food about a month ago and he goes, no, it's like, you don't need to do that again. He goes, if you're going there, don't bother with it. We haven't been there. Since that time, we have stopped going, and it all comes down to the customer experience in that place, and we have to protect it at all cost.
Yeah, you do. And it's not even about just the negative things either. It's the missed opportunities to make things better and to make it an experience. And really, Garrett, this is understanding what is your purpose? What's the purpose of your business? That gives you the clarity, I think, to make the right decisions on how do we handle this vendor? How do we handle this process? How do we elevate this process? To add more third-party context to this, I was listening to a Gary Vee podcast this morning, actually, and somebody was asking him a question about, there were a couple of questions that all linked together, personal brand, but one person asked a specific question. Did I say one buddy?
One buddy, it's okay. We know where you're at.
One person asked a specific question about culture and leadership, and how do you handle internal culture when you have people who are high producing, let's say, and this is common among brokerages, but they're just not, they seem to be against the grain on the core values and certain things. And Gary had a very simple answer. He says, it's actually, culture's so easy. You just have to not care about the money as much as you care about the culture. He's like, then the decision's easy. You just deal with the short-term financial pain of firing the top producer who is ruining your culture, and you make sure you maintain the culture, and the money's going to come back. He's like, but if you put money and your profits above these things, he's like, culture's never going to win. He's like, if you care enough about culture, the decisions are very, very simple. And that gets to what you were talking about with having the internal personnel. Like, how do we handle these hiring and firing decisions? Like, very simple. You have a purpose, you have a North Star, you have certain things that you value as a company, and you do not compromise on those things.
I'm really happy you brought up from a Gary Vee leadership standpoint of like, how do you fire a top producer who's upsetting culture? It's an interesting part because when you're in leadership, your customers are the actual people that are working below you. Your whole job is to make sure that that is running smoothly. The top producers, then their customers are the ones that they're actually serving, selling products to or doing a service for. And you got to always make sure you're protecting the customers that are important. And the funny thing with the top producer, you can have that top producer screwing up the culture. Long-term effects is nobody wants to work there. You have one top producer and everybody else is like grumbling, they're miserable, they're not liking where they work. And then all of a sudden, if you can maintain the culture that's needed to run a high-producing company, I guarantee you can have a couple of mediocre producers rise up and take the place of one top producer. And this is where I think top producers get a little cocky, I think, is they're like, well, how are you going to replace me? If I can make three people over here produce a little bit better, by the way, we just replaced you. I don't need one person to come and replace you. I just need the rest of the crew to feel better and to rise up. And by the way, your numbers are taken care of. And I think we lose sight of that sometimes.
It also doesn't matter. It's like, well, I don't care if we do replace you, because culture is more important than the profit at the end of the day. Now, you do need profitability to stay in business, but if that's truly the mindset, and I think the biggest struggle, Garrett, that a lot of people have in making these decisions is we don't have a definition of what culture is. Yep. And we also don't necessarily, going down to the first comment of like, we don't necessarily have a definition of like, what does it mean to have the client being placed first? Yeah. And I encourage people, like, if you can define those things, if you can really understand what it means for those to exist in your business, it's going to be, I'll say this, more clear to make decisions. It doesn't make it easy, because if you're firing a best friend who you hired because you're like, well, they're my friend, I'm going to hire them, but they kind of aren't doing that well, they don't fit with the culture. Like, yeah, you do need to fire them. The firing isn't easy, but the clarity of the decision that needs to be made should be abundantly clear.
Yep. I've had to do a firing in my time, not a ton, but enough that I've had to go down that process. firing's not easy. Firing a vendor, firing a friend, firing, even sometimes firing a client. It's not an easy process to go through, but at the end of the day, you got to take that step back and say, this is business. This is, when we're talking business, now it's all about, as I was saying, the customer's experience. And I think for anybody right now entering the second half of 2026, a lot of you are looking at business plans right now. You're looking at all your systems, all your stuff you've been doing, all your processes you've had in place so far this year and how they're working. And I would encourage you, take a step back for a second and look at even every one of them and say, okay, obviously some of this stuff is about me and my business, but let's turn that for a second and go, well, if we're doing this, is it about helping me or is it about helping the client have a better experience here? I think almost every system you can turn it to go, when I look at my pre-listing packet, is it about a better experience for the client or is it about me trying to see if I can secure more business? When I look at my actual listing presentation and me putting everything into it that needs to go there, is it about me getting the listing and winning the listing? Or is it about providing a customer experience where they're like, Matt's our realtor, we love him, I can tell he's taking care of us. And then every process through the transaction, you look at all the updates, customer service calls. Oh, I don't really want to do that. The number one way I sell customer service calls to coaching clients, Matt, is that it reduces the amount of phone calls, which if you think about it, when the agent goes, oh, that'll save me time, save me energy, all of a sudden I'm not having to deal with all these phone calls. They actually take ownership of it because of them, not the client, the agent going, that helps me. Where on the flip side is that no, own the customer service call because it's actually a better client experience for the people that you have brought in. That should be the reason you do it, not because it saves you time and phone calls and all that type of stuff. Better customer, do it with everything, every little thing. Real estate reviews. Most people decide to do real estate reviews or market impact reports, Matt, because they're like, oh, I can see how this will correlate to more transactions for me. Or you can look at it as people that see you as the value trusted advisor for real estate. It improves the customer experience as they're getting to work with you. It raises the bar of they're going, I don't know any realtor that provides that service. And I've even said to people, Matt, like when the client says, do you charge for this? Like that's a win when you get to go, no, I'm doing this for you. Because this is all about you here in this moment. That's customer service. That is what raises the experience. And we should be thinking about with everything we do.
Yeah. Well, ultimately, if you can provide value, the results or the offshoot of that value being delivered is going to be more revenue, more opportunity, all of these things. I remember listening to a podcast years ago. Andy Frisella was talking as one of his like Q&A podcasts, and somebody had asked a question about business growth or whatever. And Andy asked his co-host, he's like, why do businesses exist? Right. And if you ask anybody, why does a business exist? They'll be like, oh, to make money. That's why a business exists. And he said, no, business does not exist to make money. They exist to provide value. And if they provide value, they will make money. If you think a business exists, if you're starting a business to make money, then you're going to miss the opportunity to actually receive money, because you should start with providing value. And everything we do in real estate, and even down to like, oh, do you charge for these real estate reviews? Like, no, I don't charge for it. But actually we do, because if you're in our workflow and everything and you're receiving the value, you're going to come through and use our service, which is something that people pay for. And there's going to be an exchange of consideration for the value that's being delivered, because no one's saying you need to provide value for quote unquote free. It's provide value and the money's going to follow.
I do get paid. I just get paid. I get paid as a byproduct of us getting to, help you out when that time comes.
Example, this podcast. Do we charge for this podcast? No, we do not. Do we make you listen to 10 minutes of advertisements up front or drop in, hey, by the way, if you're looking to hire, go to indeed.com, and enter code 10tenths to receive 10% off. By the way, don't try that because it's not going to work. We don't, because we want to provide value to all of you. And the byproduct of that is many of you come and participate inside our community. You participate inside our group coaching, and that's great. And there's consideration for that. But our thought on the podcast is not how can we drive more people to our community? It's how do we provide value to the listeners? And we talk about this a lot, Garrett.
So going down the path that you're on right now, you think about the average realtor who comes into this business and then bounces out of this business. And a lot of people come into it going, one, I heard realtors can make a lot of money. Like there's a lot of opportunity to make a lot of money in real estate. I want a slice of that. I want to have some fun. Seems like an easy job. And it's interesting, during certain marketplaces, you'll watch a whole bunch of realtors flood in. They all go there, start processing deals. They're making great money. And then the business gets tough or the cycle changes a little bit. And they're like, I'm not really making the money that I was making before. It's a little bit harder than what I was expecting. And I'm out. Like it's been fun, but I'm not, real estate's not for me. And they leave. And this brings me back to, I think most people in businesses, but I see it a lot in real estate. They are very, 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 very concerned about, I need to make money. And I've always told people the deals and the money is a byproduct. That will always follow. You take care of great people, you give them great service, you show up for them and be a valuable service to them in what they're going through. They will naturally refer you. They will naturally be in your world. They will naturally come back to you. But if you look at them as like, this is my payday and I got to get this thing closed and I got to find the next deal after them. And this is where a lot of us completely leave our people after the sale and we're looking for the next deal right now. This is not focusing on the customer experience. This is not focusing on putting them first, because again, the money byproduct that comes out of this is incredibly rewarding. Yeah. It is with the agents that I know that can take that moment, Matt, and go and understand the money will just follow, but these are my people and I'm going to love on them and I'm going to take care of them. Those are the people right now that I have that have $1 million GCI goals for the year right now in marketplaces where people aren't making $1 million in GCI. It's not like, oh, that's just given to you because you live there and that's what those sales prices do. No. Healthy reward for taking care of their people first.
Yeah. Well, and this works at any level, I believe. And I think it's not to say that, oh, you have to operate a certain way. Like there's different levels of value, right? There's different systems and programs. And it just comes down to the question of like, in the way that you want to deliver value, whatever your service or your product is, are you actually putting that customer first? And so I'll use maybe a surprise example here. I have a client right now who's doing fantastic with calling expireds. And people are like, oh man, like, well, he's just hunting for business. His purpose, he even said, he's like, I just love helping people who really need to sell their home and have struggled to do so. He's like, I just love being able to do that and help them accomplish that goal. And people can feel it when he makes the call, which is why he's able to get the appointments and then convert them into listings for himself. And the rest then is the story, right? I mean, he's putting that customer, he's not calling saying, hey, how can I get this listing? He's calling, how can I help this person? They tried to sell, they need to sell. Like, what do they need? How do I help them?
Think of the mindset shift though on that, Matt. Like think of that, what you just said, and I'll give this back to you, but like making that phone call and going, these people have probably had a really bad experience. They just spent X amount of months on the market hoping they're going to sell. Maybe they got bad information. Maybe they got misrepresented. Maybe they just weren't given the right information to make the right choices. So you have a realtor that's like, this client, let them go. I'm pissed off. They never listened to me. They never reduced their price. And they're sitting there going, I don't feel like I have the right information to be able to make the decisions to sell. So to have somebody like him coming to this moment and going, I feel like I'm going to find the people out here that really need to sell. They really need some good guidance. And I'm going to show up for them and hopefully help them through a miserable situation that they probably been going. What a mindset shift.
Yeah. It changes a lot. And this isn't to say that you compromise your business process for what the client wants, because you still get to choose who you do business with. If a client's saying, well, hey, I want to do it this way. And you're like, well, that's not the way I do it. That is not not being about the customer. That's being about your process that you know serves a particular type of customer. And that is another thing to understand is as this relates to your brand and how you do your process, you still cannot be all things to all people. And because if you do, then you're nothing to nobody. But for the people that you are really looking to serve, then you can do that really, really well and let them make the choice if they want to go down that path with you. And through that path, make sure that you're doing the things that are about them and for them versus just trying to do something for yourself. Because Garrett, we do see it. The businesses that are really about themselves and all that stuff, they run into sustainability problems. They run into profit margin problems all the time because they're compromising on these things, which just create extra stress and more friction ultimately.
Well, so all of this goes back to knowing who your customer is to begin with. So if you figure out who your customer is to begin with, then you can start saying, okay, if my whole reason for this is to create the best customer experience possible, I hate to say it, like if you're trying to serve everybody, you're serving nobody. Because your process here now might feel really good for this person over here, but it does not feel good for this person over here. And then later on in the process, because we're trying to take care of everybody, the one that you were actually like really making great contact with, and they were like going, oh, this is amazing. Now they're a week or two into your process and they're going, I'm not jiving with how this feels for me over here. But the person that didn't get it before was like, oh, it's just starting to kind of fire up now. I feel like we're starting to kind of click here a little bit. Like, because you're trying to be everything to everybody. And so if you really want to put the customer first, if you really want to provide the highest level to be like, this is how we're going to take care of these people, you have to know who the customer is. Because in that moment in time, if you're selling wine like Gary Vee is going to say, okay, who's our customer? Wine drinkers. Great. Are we going to treat wine drinkers the same way as if we had a cigar program where people could order cigars online? Are we going to treat that the same as a tire rack company that we're going to sell tires to, where they can come online and pick out their tires? It's totally different customers. There might be some crossover and some overlap, but at the end of the day, totally different customers. Expired listings, pay-per-click, your personal friends in your database, they're all coming at it from different experiences, different background, different stuff. They've experienced different things. If you know who your customer is and you're like, my customer is short sales and people that have had defaults or whatever, like that's a different customer, different experience. And then if you're working with investors and you got to step back and say, what do these people need? How can I meet them in a place where we're going to give them the best customer service ever? I'm pretty sure George Lucas, when he was trying to figure out this movie and he was going to present it, there was a moment, I would say, is that he knew exactly who his audience was. He knew exactly who was going to be tuned into that type of movie, that type of story, and said, what if we just cut all this stuff out? Because that is some way that we can improve this for them and they don't even know it, but it's going to be better.
And I think too, when you know who your customer is, you're able to understand what decisions are really about them. And if you're trying to be all things to all people, that leads you into the scarcity mindset of I can't give things away and all that stuff, because now you're just by default left to thinking about yourself because you don't have an avatar or a particular customer that you're thinking of, which, by the way, doesn't have to be outrageously narrow. It can be slightly broad. And I like to imagine, it's funny as you brought that up to George Lucas and circling this back around to the front side here, is I like to think that, in the book that we read, she talked about, hey, just protecting the guests in a way of, hey, let's get this movie going versus, thinking about the other people first. And I like to maybe think that maybe it was a little bit deeper than that of, George wanted to really appeal to that moviegoer who wanted that kind of indie film feel and this immersive experience, but at an incredible production scale. And he's like, well, the only way to do that is to get right into it and surprise them with something that fully immerses them from the beginning so that they can be tuned in the entire time. And like, when you think about that, it's like, oh, well, then we need to remove the front side, because if that type of moviegoer needs to get right into it. Now I'm just thinking on behalf of George Lucas, of course.
I like that you referred to him as George, like you guys were best friends.
Yeah, I know. I was like, hey, but
I don't need Lucas anymore.
George. I'm going to shoot him a text real quick. Be like, hey, is it okay if I mention this on the pod?
I think
Doesn't work
again,
like that.
to bring this all around, I think we kind of went down some different paths here, and we talked about it from like the employees that you have in your company and how that's affecting them, to all of your processes and how you show up for your clients. And I would just I want to just encourage all of you, take a step back and look at all the processes, and in time that a customer actually has interaction with what you're doing, and just ask yourself, is this about me or is it about them? And anytime you say I'm doing this because it's for me, just take a step back and be like, how can we reframe this and look at it from the customer's experience and see if we can make it about them? Because at the end of the day, that's what people refer. That's what people talk about. That is what's going to make them come back and use you again. And I've said it so many times on coaching calls, and I'm going to say it a couple more times here. The money and the results are a byproduct. Matt, you said it earlier, saying like, if the value is being given, the people will come to value. People move towards value no matter what. Mm-hmm. And this is where we get stuck in like, well, what do we charge for our business and all this kind of stuff? And this all comes back to, if the value is there, people will pay for the service. There's a reason that people go into the store today. They're going to go in and buy $100 bottle of wine. And people would go, why would you do that? Because you can buy another bottle of wine right there for $12.99. Yeah, but you know what? There's an experience and there's value that I appreciate in this bottle of wine up here, and I'm going to enjoy that one tonight. There, you have to understand who our customers are. And by the way, those two bottles of wine, understand who their customers are.
Yeah. 100%.
One is not trying to, it's two different customers that are going to come in and buy those bottles of wine. Totally different.
And they understand, they want to bring the value, and they're making those decisions by putting the customer first. And these are the type of things, Garrett, that I think help you achieve harmony with your life and business, which allows you to build a business, as we like to say, that fuels your life and does not consume it. And if that is something that you're looking to achieve, we encourage you to keep listening to the podcast if this is your first one, or come join us inside our community. Download the Life at 10 Tenths app. Go to 10tenths.co and look at our options. We have a free engagement engine webinar if you want to start right there to understand, how do I build out a customized communication plan that helps me focus on my strengths so that I can provide value to the people and really put my clients and customers first in my business so that we can grow. And we would love for you guys to join us. And if there's anything we can do for you, you can always reach out to us directly as well. We are here for you. We appreciate you guys tuning in. Stay tuned for the next one. It's going to be another good one. As we like to say, we might be a little biased on that one though, Garrett, but appreciate you, brother.
Hey, appreciate you. Appreciate all of you listening. And thanks so much. We'll be back soon.